Hello again, everyone. Abigail here again on Talks with Abby. Today, we're already back with episode 5. Wow. Can you guys believe that we're already 5 episodes in? Well, I just want to say thank you for sticking with me as we discuss our topic of post-traumatic growth, as we learn about how it affects us and those around us, both positively and negatively, while also using our knowledge to improve not only ourselves, but the world as well. Now, onto today's post-traumatic growth topic. Are you guys ready for it? It's going to be personal transformation, post-traumatic growth, and gerotranscendence. Now, you might be thinking, Abigail, what does that even mean? To begin, let's refresh our memory a bit. Now, for those who may be joining our podcast for the first time, you might be wondering, what is post-traumatic growth? Well, post-traumatic growth is when an individual experiences a traumatic event, and through this traumatic event, the individual does not let it overpower or define them, but instead, it allows them to use this traumatic event to transform and improve their own selves. Basically, this allows them to have a stronger outlook on life. Now, for example, imagine an individual, let's name him Dave. Dave gets into a really traumatic car accident, a near-death experience. Now, in this experience, he mentions that his life basically flashes before his eyes, and in those moments, all he was filled with was regret from things that he had done or hadn't done in his life. Dave was working a 9 to 5, sometimes 6 days a week, never took any vacations, always in a bad mood, saving his paychecks for when the time was right, and constantly ignoring dinner invites from his friends or his family members because he was always tired. And through this experience, he realizes that there were so many more experiences that he wished he had done and had said yes to. And because of this, once he made a full recovery, he made a complete change to his life as well. He made it a mission to reach out to his loved ones at least once a week, to book more vacations and travel the world, treat himself to that Lego set he had been eyeing for years now, but never went to buy. He learned to live lightly with a positive view of life, because his accident taught him that life was too short to be wasted and that tomorrow was never guaranteed. Now, as we talk about personal transformation and the topic of post-traumatic growth and gerotranscendence, this talks about the topic of post-traumatic growth and how an individual changes as they become older. Gerotranscendence focuses on the idea that as we get older, our thoughts and perspectives change as well. Similarly, as to how we overcome trauma and change positively because of it, during gerotranscendence, we use our knowledge from our experiences and age to react and behave in our lives and to our experiences. Now, as you all may know already, this podcast is a bit different from others because of my casualness and how comfortably I talk to you guys. And as you know, I do tend to overshare stories about my life often, and today's episode will definitely be no different. Now, when it comes down to gerotranscendence, I think that many people like to narrow it down to a specific group of people, which are mainly elderly adults. As we think, oh, they've lived longer lives, they have more experiences, more stories, and although that is true, we can apply that to our lives as well. As we grow older, we become wiser through our brain developments and experiences, to which we can all be affected by gerotranscendence. In my case, this relates back to my senior year of high school, which is the dreaded year of 2020. Yeah, I know. Now, to give a bit of background information, I've always been quiet, the girl who mainly focuses on her studies, never dated, but that all changed in my senior year of high school in 2019. I had finally gotten my first boyfriend, not knowing what I had gotten myself into. But long story short, that 5 month relationship felt like 5 long years of my life. I went from having no prior relationship experience to experience literally the worst relationship of my life. Those 5 months were full of mental, emotional abuse, lies, cheating, and it honestly was just a complete 180 from the girl that I had been before and from the life that I lived before. I was left scarred with traumatic experiences and constantly receiving threats in ways that he knew would affect my emotions, and it really took a toll on my mental health, I would say. At the time, my relationship with my loved ones, my parents, my sister, my best friends, all ruined within 5 months. I had been isolated from my family, and yet at the end of it, I was still over here consoling my so-called ex-boyfriend at the time. Now, the relationship ended freshly in February 2020, so right when lockdown was about to begin, which personally, I think I would say is both a blessing and a curse, to be honest. Now, as an effect of this relationship, I was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and OCD, which I honestly do still have till this day, but I have learned to manage it 100 times better, I would say. Now, throughout this situation, I realized that I had lost myself and I became codependent on others, while also becoming extremely avoidant at the same time. I sought professional help, and sometimes, honestly, the effects that it had on me, I still feel till now. But because of this, I feared the outside world. I locked myself in the comfort of my own bubble, where I knew that it was safe. But as I got older, I realized that no part of me ever got to experience anything but this bubble. Now, my parents were strict, meaning I never got to see much of the world. But as I got older, I used the healing journey of this experience as well as the development of my brain to allow myself to understand that only I could be in control of my own life. I couldn't let these experiences hold me down anymore. I had a drive for a change in my life, for new experiences. I wanted to travel most of the time, although I didn't have anyone to go with. I told myself that it was okay because I could go alone, and that was exactly what I did. Relating back to the topic of childhood transcendence, I think that this story relates to it as it shows how my traumatic events really allowed me to experience post-traumatic growth, but my experiences and understandings as I got older also allowed me to realize that life was too short to dwell on something that was out of my control, something that had nothing to do with me. It allowed me to realize that there was more to life and that I was the only one who could make that change that I craved. Life was about the experiences that I made, and I think that that was part of something that only I could realize through growth and aging. In the time of my current life, I live to do things that I love, such as spending time with my family, traveling, going to concerts, meeting new people, and honestly, I'm glad that this is where I am 6 years later. Truthfully, I was able to grow in the aftermath of adversity due to support from my best friends and my mom. My best friends understood and allowed me to feel seen when I was at my lowest, and they listened to me talk about my feelings for years. In the case of my mom, she pushed me to seek professional help, which was something that I was truly grateful for. But I think that other than that, I used a lot of mental strength in order to overcome the negative headspace that I was in. And I think that I allowed myself to understand that the situation had already happened and the only thing I could do was one thing, and that was to do better. If I'm being honest, it took me about 4 years, meaning I really only had this realization about 2 years ago. But honestly, I think that's okay because things take time. As mentioned in an article written by Scott Kaufman, he mentions how Dabrowski concluded that healthy personality development often requires the disintegration of the personality structure, leading to psychological tension, self-doubt, anxiety, and depression. However, this also leads to personality development. This represents his acknowledgement that traumatic events can affect us both mentally and harm our well-being in many ways, but through these events, it allows us to overcome our trauma and develop and grow in many positive ways as we use our experiences to learn and improve. Now, as we wrap up the topic of post-traumatic growth and gerotranscendence, I hope that I was able to properly share how much trauma can affect us. However, I want you all to know that our traumatic experiences do not define us. Instead, it is important to remember that we are strong and will continue to be strong as we continue to grow and use our experiences to remind ourselves just how powerful we are and how we use our experiences to improve ourselves and share our continuous love and knowledge with the world. Time truly does heal. As we continue to grow older, experience new things, and behave differently, we begin to see the world differently as well. The way we think when we're 15 is going to be different from when we're 30, 50, even 70, and that's just a normal part of life. It's normal to continue to grow and change, but I think that the important part is that what we make out of that change and how we let it affect our lives. I hope you all remember that life is full of change, and although it can be scary, the important thing is that we'll be okay in the end. And with that, our podcast episode comes to an end. Thank you for tuning in to episode 5 of Talks with Abby, and I will see you next week. Thank you.